The fall of Rome. So there's three main reasons that you need to know about that caused the fall of Rome. Political instability, economic and social problems, and the weakening of Rome's borders. Though there's a lot of different reasons that eventually caused Rome to fall, and historians point to multiple of these reasons as the cause. We're going to focus in on these three. So, with political instability, Rome had been at civil war and experienced infighting for 100 years until a man by the name of Caesar Augustus stepped in and kind of did away with, so to speak, the democracy and appointed himself as the emperor of Rome. Under Caesar, the empire expanded greatly and conquered many new territories. However, the problem is once he passed away in 14 CE, there was never really a established way to pass on the power to the next emperor, or who would be the next emperor. And so this transfer of power kind of left a vacuum that Rome never quite figured out how to fill. The Praetorian Guard, which is like the royal guard to the emperor, would often be the ones to end up appointing somebody. But the problem is they wouldn't appoint people who were good for the empire, but rather people who would benefit them the most. As far as economic and social problems go, because of Rome's large army and the wars that it waged, it was very costly, and they had to have big amounts of taxes that they charged the people. And because of the heavy taxes, it caused a lot of people to go broke and become unemployed. And the unemployment was even furthered by the fact that large, wealthy farmers and businessmen were able to use slaves versus poor businessmen weren't able to really compete with these larger farms and stuff, and thus went out of business. To make matters even worse, on top of that, you had notorious emperors such as Nero, who spent money like crazy and were corrupt, extremely corrupt, did not have Rome's best interests in mind. And so all this led as well to a weakening of the frontiers of Rome. In other words, Rome's borders started to become weak because it was such a vast or large empire that it took a lot to try to maintain it from outside forces coming in and attacking. Primarily, they had a lot of problems with Germanic tribes, or tribes of people from German descent, would constantly be attacking, particularly groups like the Ottoman Empire. And then also from the Middle East, they also had Islamic groups attacking and stuff like that as well. Plus, with the large growth of the empire and all the corruption that was going on, there was a huge decline in the feeling of citizenship that was such a big part to Rome's success early on. And because people felt less and less like actual citizens of Rome, there became less loyalty to Rome. And this trickled into the army. Even though it was such a large army, people weren't loyal to the army. To make matters even worse, in terms of the weakening ability of Rome to protect its borders, when Emperor Constantine became emperor in 330 CE, he decided to take a drastic step and move the capital of Rome from the city of Rome to another point in what's modern day Turkey, Istanbul, and he renamed it New Rome, in which later became known as Constantinople after Emperor Constantine, and it became vastly successful. The problem is the empire was now split in two, as when he died, and again with the problem with the succession of who's next to rule, depending on the emperor, if they ruled in Old Rome or New Rome, eventually it became split, and there was two empires instead of one. And then the western part began to kind of dissolve even further, breaking down into individual tribes and stuff like that. And so the problem is that even Rome itself eventually was attacked and ransacked, meaning they came in and stole a bunch of stuff and all kinds of stuff to the actual city of Rome. And so the western part of the empire was in chaos, essentially, and wasn't well protected, whereas Constantinople and the eastern part of the empire was really thriving due to trade, which we'll learn more about later. It became known as the Byzantine Empire. So eventually, the western part of Rome fell. The eastern part survived for another 1,000 years, and really the Roman influence still survives even to this day, even though the actual empire of Rome does not.